They were laughing again. Captain Telos stood at the center of his bridge, his long translucent body swaying gently in the recycled air. His species had evolved on a small moon where the atmosphere was thick and the gravity was kind. Their bones were hollow. Their organs floated in gas-filled sacs inside their bodies. They moved like dancers, like smoke, like creatures made of glass and light. And right now, they were mocking the species that was about to board their ship. "Earth," said First Officer Myra, reading from her data screen. "A rocky planet in a small system, gravity reading of 9.8 meters per second squared." She made a sound that was the version of a snort. "They call this a moderate gravity world." "Moderate," Captain Telos repeated. He spread his forearms wide and looked at his crew. "Do you hear this? The humans think their little rock is moderate." The bridge crew laughed. Their voices were high and musical, like wind chimes in a storm. They had traveled the galaxy for 3,000 years. They had met species from crushing worlds where the gravity would flatten in seconds. They had traded with beings from gas giants, from ice moons, from planets where the very air was poison. They measured everything. They calculated everything. And by their calculations, Earth was soft. Earth was gentle. Earth was a nursery world for weak little creatures. "I have seen the human files," said Navigator from his station. He was young for a barely 200 years old. "They are short, dense-looking. They walk on two legs like the prill but without the exoskeleton." "No exoskeleton," Myra tilted her head. "How do they protect themselves?" "They have skin, soft skin, and they wear cloth over it." More laughter filled the bridge. Captain Telos waved one of his arms for silence. "Enough, we must be professional. The human trade liaison is arriving to discuss the grain contracts for their colony on Nexus 7. We will be polite. We will be patient. We will not mock them to their faces." He paused. "Only behind their backs." The crew appreciated this. The ship they commanded was called the Eternal Drift. It was a beautiful vessel, 3 kilometers long, built from metals that were light as air and strong as they needed them to be. The floors were designed for creatures that weighed 15 kilograms at most. The furniture was delicate. The walls were thin. Everything was elegant and efficient and perfect for beings who had never needed to fight their own planet for survival. The docking alert chimed. "The human shuttle is connecting now," Myra reported. "One passenger. His name is listed as, he is a trade liaison with military engineering experience." "Military?" Telos raised what passed for an eyebrow among his species. "The humans have military." "All species have military, Captain." "Yes, but what could human military do? Throw soft objects at their enemies, breathe on them." He made the laughing sound again. "Prepare the greeting party. I want full diplomatic protocol. Let us show these Earth creatures how a civilized species welcomes guests." The greeting party assembled in the main boarding corridor, 12 in their finest robes, floating gently above the polished floor. The lights were set to a warm, golden tone. The air was perfumed with something sweet and calming. Everything was ready. The airlock cycled. There was a hiss of pressure equalizing. They straightened themselves, ready to look gracious and superior at the same time. They expected something small to come through that door. Something soft. Something that would look up at them with wonder and feel grateful to be in the presence of such an advanced species. The door opened. Stepped through. He was not what they expected. The human was not tall by the standards of many species. He stood about 1.8 meters, which was short compared to the... But there was something about the way he stood. He did not float. He did not sway. He planted himself on the ground like he was part of it, like he was made of the same stuff as planets. His shoulders were broad. His arms were thick. His legs looked like they were built to carry mountains. And his face, that soft human face with its strange small eyes and flat nose, showed no fear at all. He looked around the corridor with calm curiosity. Then he took a step forward. The sound that followed would haunt them for generations. Crack! His boot came down on the polished deck plate. The metal screamed. A web of cracks spread out from under his foot like lightning frozen in steel. The floor, which had held thousands of for hundreds of years, crumpled under the weight of a single human step. The greeting party scattered in panic. They flew backward, their robes tangling, their musical voices turning into shrieks of alarm. One of them crashed into a wall. Another knocked over a ceremonial vase that had survived 3 centuries of space travel. Stopped, he looked down at his feet. He looked at the ruined floor. Then he looked up at the terrified with an expression of pure confusion. "I am sorry," he said. His voice was deep and calm. "Did I do something wrong?" Captain Telos pushed his way through the panicked crowd. His hearts were beating fast inside his chest. He stared at the human, then at the floor, then at the human again. "What weapon are you carrying?" Telos demanded. "What device did you use to do this?" Blinked, he raised his hands slowly, showing they were empty. "I have no weapon, Captain. I just walked. This is how I walk." "Impossible. Our floors are reinforced. They can withstand impacts that would destroy lesser ships." "I weigh 82 kilograms, said. He said it like it was a normal thing, like it was not a number that made every in the corridor gasp in horror. "On Earth, this is considered average. Maybe a little below average, actually. I have been told I should eat more." 82 kilograms. The heaviest on the ship weighed 16. Captain Telos felt his understanding of the universe shift beneath him like unstable ground. He had read the files. He had seen the gravity numbers. But he had never, not once, considered what those numbers actually meant. He had assumed that a moderate gravity world would produce moderate creatures. He was wrong. He looked at this human who had cracked reinforced deck plating with a single step. And for the first time in his long life, Captain Telos felt something he had never felt before when meeting a new species. He felt afraid. "Welcome," Telos said, his voice not quite steady, "to the eternal drift." Smiled. It was a friendly smile, a warm smile, the smile of someone who had no idea that he had just become the most terrifying thing on the ship. "Thank you," he said. "It is good to be here. I hope we can work together well." The news spread through the eternal drift like fire through dry grass. Within minutes, every crew member knew. The human had cracked the floor. The human weighed 82 kilograms. The human was still walking through their ship, leaving dents and damage wherever his feet touched down. In the engineering section, a named grabbed his scanning equipment and ran toward the main corridor. He had to see this for himself. He had spent his entire career studying alien biology, and nothing in his training had prepared him for what the reports were describing. In the medical bay, 3 doctors argued about whether the human was sick. Perhaps he had some kind of bone disease that made him too heavy. Perhaps he was filled with metal implants. Perhaps the reports were simply wrong. And in the small quarters assigned to the human cultural staff, a woman named heard the alarm and knew exactly what had happened. She had been living on the eternal drift for 6 months. She was the cultural, assigned to help the understand human customs and behavior. In that time, she had lost weight. Her muscles had weakened. The low gravity and the light food had changed her body in ways that worried the doctors back home. But she remembered what she used to be. She remembered what humans were. Pulled on her magnetic boots, the special footwear that helped her walk without floating in the gravity, and made her way to the main atrium. She had to find before he accidentally destroyed something important. She found him standing in the middle of a growing crowd. They kept their distance, forming a wide circle around the human. They watched him like he was a dangerous animal, which, realized, was not entirely wrong. To them, he was dangerous. Not because he wanted to hurt anyone, but because his body was built for a world they could not imagine. She called out. He turned. Relief flooded his face when he saw another human. Thank goodness. Can you please explain to these people that I am not a weapon? She walked carefully toward him, her magnetic boots clicking on the floor. I can try, but you have to understand you just did something they thought was impossible. I walked. You walked through their floor. Looked down at the trail of cracked and dented deck plates behind him. I did not mean to. The floor seemed solid. It was solid for them. Stopped a meter away from him. Even weakened by months of low gravity, she still felt heavy compared to the around her. But next to, she felt like a ghost. How long was your flight here? 2 weeks. So you have been in full Earth gravity training the whole time. Of course, I exercise every day. I maintain my bone density and muscle mass. Standard protocol for any human traveling to low-gravity environments. Closed her eyes. Standard protocol. Of course. Back on Earth they had rules about this. Humans who spent too long in low gravity lost their strength. Their bones became weak. Their hearts became lazy. So the military and the diplomatic corps made sure their people stayed strong, even in space. It had never occurred to anyone that this might be a problem when visiting other species. Captain Telos said, turning to face the leader, I can explain what is happening. Telos floated forward. His body was rigid with tension. Please do, because right now I am considering whether your species sent an assassin onto my ship. He is not an assassin. He is exactly what he appears to be, a normal human in excellent physical condition. She paused. The problem is that you have misunderstood what normal means for us. Engineer pushed through the crowd, his scanning device in his hands. Captain, may I? Without waiting for permission, he pointed the scanner at. The device hummed and beeped, stared at the readings. His skin, already pale, went almost transparent with shock. This cannot be right, he whispered. What is it? Telos demanded. His bones, they are not hollow, they are solid, completely solid and dense. The density reading is off our charts. Looked up at like he was seeing a monster. And his muscles, they are layered, multiple layers of fiber packed together than anything in our biological database. That is normal human anatomy, said. We evolved on a planet with strong gravity. Our bodies had to support themselves against a constant pull of 9.8 meters per second squared. Every moment of every day, from the second we are born until the second we die. But ours has higher gravity than that, Myra objected from somewhere in the crowd. The numbers say so. The numbers measure different things, kept her voice patient. She had given this explanation before to other species who did not understand. Your world has higher surface gravity in terms of raw measurement, but your atmosphere is thick. Your bodies evolved to float in it. You never had to fight against the pull. You worked with it. She gestured at. Humans evolved to fight. Every step is a battle against our planet. Every heartbeat pushes blood upward against the force that wants to pull it down. Our entire existence is resistance. Silence fell over the atrium. Ran more scans. His heart, he said quietly, it is like a machine, a pump designed for pressure levels that would kill any instantly. And his skeleton, it is not just dense, it is reinforced. The structure is designed to bear weight, enormous weight. On Earth, said, speaking for the first time since arrived, we carry things, heavy things. We lift objects that weigh more than we do. We climb mountains. We swim in water which pushes against us from all directions. We run until our lungs burn and our legs ache, and then we run more. He looked around at the fragile. I did not know this was unusual. I thought all species did these things. We do not, Telos said. His voice was hollow. We float, we drift. We have machines to lift heavy objects. Our bodies were never meant for labor. Then how did you build your ships? Robots, automated systems, anti-gravity tools. Telos gestured at the corridor around them. Everything on this vessel was built by machines. No hand has ever lifted anything heavier than a ceremonial blade. Absorbed this. Could see him processing the information, adjusting his understanding of the universe just as they were adjusting theirs. "I am sorry for the damage," he said finally. "I will walk carefully. If you have reinforced areas of the ship, I can stay there." "We have some sections with stronger flooring," offered, "near the reactor. The engineering teams use heavy equipment there." "Then I will stay in those sections," bowed his head slightly, a human gesture of respect. "I did not come here to frighten anyone. I came to discuss trade agreements. Grain for your colony worlds, nothing more." Captain Telos stared at him for a long moment. The fear was still there in his eyes, but now there was something else too. Curiosity, wonder, the beginning of a question that would take much longer to answer. "Come," Telos said at last. "We will find you a path that can bear your weight, and perhaps while we walk you can tell me more about this planet of yours, this Earth that builds creatures like you." Smiled, "I would be happy to." They began to walk, the human and the captain, moving slowly through the ship. Behind them, the crowd whispered and stared, and somewhere in the back of his mind, Captain Telos began to understand something he had never considered before. Earth had not made humans weak. Earth had made them into something the galaxy had never seen, something that could walk through walls and lift mountains, and survive in conditions that would destroy lesser species. Earth had made them strong. By the third day, everyone on the Eternal Drift knew about the human. They came from all over the ship to see him. The crew members found excuses to walk past the reinforced corridors where was allowed to move. The Prill traders, insect-like beings with hard shells and clicking voices, watched from safe distances. Even the ambassadors, fish-like creatures who lived in water-filled chambers, pressed their faces against their tank windows to catch a glimpse. Had become the most famous passenger in the history of the Eternal Drift. He handled it well, watched him move through the attention with patience and grace. He answered questions. He explained things. He apologized for the damage he caused and offered to pay for repairs. He was, in every way, the perfect diplomat. But curiosity was a powerful force. On the morning of the fourth day, a group of young engineers approached him in the cargo bay. They were nervous. Their bodies swayed more than usual, but their eyes were bright with the kind of excitement that comes before a discovery. "Human," their leader said. Her name was, "We have a request." Set down the data pad he had been reading. "Of course, how can I help?" "We want to see what you can do." Who had been watching from across the bay felt her stomach tighten. She knew where this was going. "What do you mean?" asked. "We have been studying the files about Earth, about human capabilities," gestured at the cargo bay around them. "This room has reinforced flooring. The heaviest equipment on the ship is stored here. We thought perhaps you could show us some of the things humans do, normal things, things that are easy for you." Looked at, she shrugged. There was no way to stop this. The curiosity had built up too much pressure. Better to release it in a controlled way than have it explode later. "All right," said, "what would you like to see?" They whispered among themselves, then pointed at a cargo container sitting against the wall. It was a standard shipping unit, about the size of a small vehicle. The markings on its side indicated it weighed 300 kilograms. "Can you lift that?" Walked over to the container. He looked at it. He checked the weight label. Then he bent down, gripped the handles on its sides, and stood up. The container rose with him. He lifted it to his waist, then to his chest. Then, with a grunt of effort, he pressed it above his head. 300 kilograms of metal and cargo, held in the air by human arms. They made sounds that had never heard before. They were screaming, not in fear but in amazement. Some of them fell down. Others grabbed each other for support. One young male fainted completely, his body going limp and floating gently to the floor. Set the container down carefully. "That was heavy," he admitted, "but not impossible. On Earth, our strongest athletes can lift more than twice that amount." "Twice?" His voice was barely a whisper. "Twice that. The record is over 500 kilograms, I think, for a clean lift. Some humans have moved even heavier objects using different techniques. Rubbed his shoulders. I am not a professional athlete, just an engineer who exercises regularly. Word of the demonstration spread fast. Within an hour, the cargo bay was filled with observers from every species on the ship. They brought more challenges. They wanted to see more. Jumped. In gravity, which was less than a third of Earth's gravity, his body launched into the air like he had been thrown from a catapult. He soared upward, his hands nearly touching the ceiling 4 meters above. For a moment, he hung there, suspended in the weak pull of the ship's artificial gravity. Then he came down, landing with a boom that shook the deck. The crowd gasped, some of them cheered. On Earth, said, breathing a little hard, I could jump maybe 1 meter. Here, everything is different. I feel like I could fly. Can you fly? A Prill trader asked. His voice was serious. No, humans cannot fly. We are too heavy for that even here. Smiled at the disappointed faces around him. But we can do other things. He walked to a support beam near the wall. It was made of solid alloy, a thick bar designed to hold the structural weight of the cargo bay. Without thinking, grabbed it to steady himself. The metal bent under his grip. He let go immediately, staring at his hand, then at the beam. The shape of his fingers was pressed into the alloy like marks in soft clay. I am sorry, he said. I did not mean to do that. No one blamed him. They were too busy starring. Captain Telos pushed through the crowd. He had been watching from the back, staying silent, observing. Now he moved forward until he stood directly in front of. Human, he said, I have a question. Yes, Captain. The expansion wars, 200 years ago, when the Galactic Council tried to conquer Earth and bring it into the unified systems. Telos paused. Your people refused, you fought back. The war lasted only 6 months before the Council gave up. The official records say that Earth was protected by favorable terrain and clever strategy. His eyes narrowed. But that is not the real reason, is it? Was quiet for a moment, held her breath. I was not alive during the expansion wars, said carefully, but I have read the histories. The Council sent their finest soldiers to Earth. They landed in what they thought were easy targets, flat plains, open coastlines, moderate gravity zones. And what happened to them? They could not move. Earth's gravity pinned them down. Their weapons, designed for low-gravity combat, did not work properly. Their ships, built for species who weighed kilograms, sank into our mud and could not take off again. His voice was calm, but his eyes were hard. And when humans came to fight, they came running, sprinting, carrying weapons that weighed more than the soldiers they faced. The Council's army was crushed, not by clever strategy, by physics. By the simple fact that they had never fought anything like us before. Silence filled the cargo bay. Watched the faces of the aliens around her. She saw fear. She saw respect. She saw the beginning of understanding. A Prill ambassador spoke from somewhere in the crowd. His clicking voice was quiet, almost reverent. They evolved to fight their own planet, he said, every single day, and they won. Nodded slowly. We did not know we were winning. To us, it was just life, waking up, standing up, walking, working. We did not know that other species had it easier. We thought everyone had to fight their world the way we fought ours. You thought everyone was like you, Telos said. Yes, we were wrong about that. Looked around at the gathered aliens, these fragile, beautiful creatures who had crossed the galaxy in ships made of glass and light, just as you were wrong about us. The demonstration was over. The crowd began to thin, but saw the way they looked at as they left, the way they kept their distance, the way they whispered to each other in voices too soft for human ears. They would never look at humans the same way again. And somewhere in the back of her mind, wondered if that was a good thing or a bad thing. She hoped it was good. She hoped the galaxy would see humans as partners, as friends, as allies. But she also knew that strength brought fear, and fear brought danger. Whatever came next, The universe had changed today. In a cargo bay on a ship, a human had lifted a box and jumped in the air, and nothing would ever be quite the same again. The alarm came without warning. Was eating breakfast in the reinforced section of the ship when the lights turned red, and a screaming sound filled the air. He dropped his food and stood up, his body shifting automatically into the alert posture he had learned during his military training. Around him, crew members were panicking. They floated into walls. They crashed into each other. Their musical voices turned into screams of terror. "What is happening?" shouted. A voice came through the ship's speakers. It was Captain Telos, and for the first time since had met him, the commander sounded afraid. "All crew to emergency stations. Hull breach in Section 7. Repeat, hull breach in Section 7. Reactor shielding compromised. All crew to emergency stations." Started moving. He did not know where Section 7 was, but he knew he had to help. He had been trained for emergencies. He had spent years learning how to stay calm when everything was falling apart. He found in the corridor outside his quarters. She was holding onto a wall handle, her magnetic boots locked to the floor. Her face was pale. "Micro-asteroid," she said before he could ask. "Hit us near the reactor. The emergency bulkheads are not sealing properly. We are losing atmosphere in that section." "Can the crew fix it?" "No." His voice was tight. "The gravity plating in that section malfunctioned when the asteroid hit. It is running at 3 times normal gravity now. No one can get in there." 3 times gravity. Did the math in his head. Gravity was about 0.3 Earth gravity. 3 times that was still less than Earth normal. "I can go," he said. Stared at him. "What?" 3 times gravity is 0.9 Earth gravity. That is lighter than home. I can move in there. I can breathe in there. He grabbed her shoulders, steadying her as the ship shook from another impact. "Tell me where to go." They ran through the ship, or rather, ran and directed him through his communication device. The corridors became more damaged as he got closer to Section 7. Panels hung from walls. Sparks flew from broken wires. The air smelled like burning metal. He found Engineer at the entrance to the damaged section. The young was trying to get through the door, but every time he moved forward, the increased gravity pulled him down. His fragile bones could not handle the pressure. He fell to the floor and could not stand up. Said, pulling him back, "Stop, you will hurt yourself." "The reactor," gasped. "If we do not seal the breach and reset the safety systems, the reactor will overheat. The whole ship will be destroyed." "I understand, I will do it." Looked up at him with eyes full of desperate hope. Can you really survive in there?" "I have walked in conditions twice as heavy as that section. I will be fine." Pulled off his diplomatic jacket, leaving only his simple shirt. He stretched his arms, his shoulders, his neck. "Tell me exactly what I need to do." Explained fast. The breach needed to be sealed with an emergency plate. The plate weighed 200 kilograms and was stored in a cabinet near the reactor. After sealing the breach, would need to manually reset the reactor's safety systems using a console on the far wall. The whole thing had to be done in less than 10 minutes, or the reactor would reach critical temperature. "I understand," said. "Open the door." Hit the emergency release. The door slid open. Beyond it could see the damaged section. The walls were torn. The floor was covered in debris. And in the distance, through a gap in the hull, he could see the blackness of space. He stepped through. The gravity hit him like an old friend. His body, which had felt strange and light for days, suddenly felt normal. His feet pressed firmly into the floor. His muscles engaged the way they were supposed to. He took a breath and felt his lungs expand properly for the first time since leaving Earth. He said into his communicator, "I am in, moving toward the breach now." Her voice crackled in his ear. "Be careful, the floor may be unstable." "I am always careful." He walked through the wreckage. Around him, small fires burned where electrical systems had failed. The air was thin and getting thinner as atmosphere leaked out through the hole in the hull. He could feel the cold of space pressing in from outside. The cabinet with the emergency plate was exactly where had said it would be. Opened it and looked at the metal sheet inside. 200 kilograms. Heavy, but not impossible. He lifted it. His muscles burned. His back ached, but he had carried heavier things before in training exercises on Earth. He had run with full military equipment up mountains. He had swum through rivers with weights tied to his body. This was hard, but it was not the hardest thing he had ever done. He carried the plate to the breach. The hole in the hull was about 1 meter wide. Through it could see stars, beautiful, cold, deadly stars. The vacuum of space was trying to pull everything out of the ship, including him. He planted his feet and leaned forward, pressing the emergency plate against the breach. It did not fit perfectly. He had to bend the edges, shape the metal to match the hole. His hands bled as he worked, the sharp edges cutting through his skin. But he kept going. He pressed and bent and hammered the plate into place until the seal was complete. The leak stopped. The atmosphere began to stabilize. "Breach sealed," he reported, moving to the reactor controls. "You are bleeding." His voice was worried. "Your vital signs are showing injury." "Just cuts, nothing serious. Focus on the next step." The reactor console was on the other side of the section. To reach it, had to cross a floor that was half collapsed. He could see the support beams beneath, bending under stress they were never designed to handle. He did not have time to be careful. He ran. The floor groaned under his weight. Panels broke away and fell into darkness below, but kept moving, jumping from stable section to stable section, using his Earth-trained legs to push himself across gaps that would have stopped any other species on the ship. He reached the console. The screen was cracked but still working. He followed instructions, entering commands he did not fully understand, pressing buttons in the order he had memorized. The reactor's temperature display was climbing toward the red zone. 90%, 92, 95. He entered the final command. The reactor shuddered. The temperature display froze. Then slowly it began to drop. 93, 90, 85. "Safety systems reset," said. "Reactor is cooling." The cheering that came through his communicator was so loud he had to pull the device away from his ear. He could hear voices screaming with joy. He could hear laughing. He could hear crying. He sat down on the floor of the damaged section and let himself breathe. His hands were covered in blood. His body ached from the effort, but he was alive, and so was everyone else on the ship. It was Captain Telos's voice. "Can you hear me?" "Yes, Captain." "What you just did," Telos paused. "I do not have words. You walked through conditions that would have killed any of us. You lifted weight that would have crushed our strongest crew members. You saved us all." "I just did what any human would do." "No," Telos's voice was firm. "You did what only a human could do. That is very different." Closed his eyes and leaned his head back against the wall. In the distance, he could hear emergency teams arriving to begin repairs. The crisis was over. The ship was safe. And somewhere in the back of his exhausted mind, he thought about Earth, about the planet that had forged him, about the gravity that had made his bones dense and his muscles strong. He had never thought of his as a gift before. It had always just been home. But now, sitting in the wreckage of an alien ship, bleeding and tired but alive, he understood something new. Earth had not been trying to kill humans. Earth had been training them. The medical bay of the Eternal Drift was not designed for humans. The beds were too soft. The equipment was too delicate. The doctors kept looking at like he was some kind of impossible creature that had walked out of a nightmare and asked for bandages. But they treated his wounds anyway. They cleaned the cuts on his hands. They wrapped them in thin bandages that felt like paper against his skin, and they stared at him with eyes full of wonder and fear and something that looked very much like respect. Captain Telos came to visit him that evening. The commander floated into the medical bay with a grace that seemed strange after everything that had happened. His translucent body caught the light and scattered it into rainbows across the walls. He stopped beside his bed and looked down at the human who had saved his ship. "How are you feeling?" Telos asked. "Tired, sore," smiled, "but I have felt worse. Worse than this. I once fell down a mountain during a training exercise on Earth, broke 3 ribs and had to walk 15 kilometers to reach the medical station." Shrugged, then winced as the movement pulled at his bandages. Compared to that, today was easy. Telos was quiet for a moment. Then he pulled a small chair from the wall, one of the few pieces of furniture in the room that could support human weight, and sat down next to the bed. "I have been thinking," the captain said, "about what happened, about what I saw." "And what did you see?" "I saw a creature walk through hell and come back smiling." Telos folded his 4 arms across his chest. "I saw someone lift weight that would crush me without complaining. I saw a species that I thought was weak, that I laughed at, that I mocked behind closed doors, turn out to be stronger than anything I have ever encountered." Did not say anything. He waited. "I was wrong," Telos continued. "We were all wrong. All the species who looked at Earth and saw a soft world with gentle gravity. We measured your planet with our instruments and assumed we understood what you were, but we did not understand at all." "You made a reasonable assumption," said. "Our gravity numbers are not impressive compared to some worlds." "Numbers," Telos made a sound that was almost a laugh. "We trusted numbers. We forgot that numbers do not tell the whole story. They do not explain how a species develops. They do not capture what it means to fight your world every moment of your life." He leaned forward, his strange eyes meetings. "I checked the historical records today. After what you did, I wanted to understand more. Do you know what I found?" "What?" "Humans have been invited onto other species' ships before. Trade missions, diplomatic visits, cultural exchanges. Every single time something happened, floors cracked, equipment broke, furniture collapsed. The reports all say the same thing. The humans apologized. They seemed confused. They did not understand why everything around them was so fragile." Nodded slowly. "We do not realize how strong we are. To us, we are just normal." "That is what frightens me," Telos admitted. "Not your strength, your ignorance of it. You walk through the galaxy not knowing that you are monsters. Beautiful, kind, friendly monsters who could destroy anything you touched if you stopped being careful." The word hung in the air between them. Monster. It was not meant as an insult. Could hear that in the captain's voice. It was meant as truth. "My people do not think of themselves as monsters," said quietly. "I know that makes it worse. And better," Telos sighed. "If you knew what you were, you might become conquerors. You might use your strength to dominate the galaxy. But you do not know. You just want to trade grain and make friends and live your lives. Your innocence protects us from your power." Arrived then, walking carefully through the door in her magnetic boots. She had been helping with the repair efforts, coordinating between the human diplomatic team and the engineers. She looked tired but happy. "They are almost done with Section 7, she said. "The reactor is stable. The hull breach is properly sealed. The ship will be fine." "Thanks to your colleague," Telos said. "Looked at, I heard what you did. The whole ship heard. You are famous now." "I was famous before," said, "for breaking floors. Now you are famous for something better." Telos stood up from his chair. "I have something to tell you both. I have spoken with my officers, with the representatives of other species on board. We have made a decision." "What decision?" asked. "We are going to retrofit a section of the ship, reinforced flooring, stronger furniture, equipment designed for human weight and human strength." Telos paused. "We are calling it the human deck. Any human who visits the eternal drift will have a place where they can move freely without worrying about damage." felt something warm spread through his chest. It was not pride exactly. It was closer to gratitude. "Thank you, Captain." "Do not thank me. This is practical. If we want to continue trading with Earth and its colonies, we will need to accommodate your people. This is simply good business." But Telos's eyes softened. "And it is the least we can do after what you did for us." He turned and floated toward the door. Before leaving, he stopped and looked back. "I am also transmitting a new cultural file to the Galactic database. It will be available to every species in the known universe. It contains everything we have learned about humans during your visit." "What does it say?" asked. Telos smiled. It was strange to see a smile, but there was no mistaking the expression. "It says, humans, do not underestimate them. They were forged in a crucible we cannot comprehend. Their world did not coddle them, it made them unbreakable." He left, lay in the medical bed staring at the ceiling. Beside him, pulled up a chair and sat down. They were quiet for a long time. Finally spoke. "They thought Earth was easy. They looked at our planet and saw moderate gravity and pleasant temperatures and thought we must be soft." "They did not know," said. "No, they did not know about the hurricanes, the earthquakes, the volcanoes, the predators that hunted us for millions of years, the diseases that killed billions, the ice ages, the droughts, the floods." Closed his eyes. "Our planet tried to kill us every single day, and we did not just survive, we conquered it. We spread across every corner of Earth, from the frozen poles to the burning deserts. We climbed the highest mountains and dived into the deepest oceans. We built cities and roads and ships and machines. We did not survive despite Earth," said quietly. "We survived because of it." "Yes," opened his eyes and looked at her. "That is what they do not understand. We are not strong despite our world. We are strong because of it. Every challenge, every disaster, every moment of suffering made us harder, tougher, more resilient." "Do you think they understand now?" "Maybe a little," smiled. "They will never fully understand. They cannot. They have never lived the way we live. They have never felt the weight we feel every moment of every day." He sat up slowly, ignoring the pain in his muscles. Through the window of the medical bay, he could see stars. Millions of stars, billions of worlds, countless species who had evolved in conditions humans would consider gentle. "But they know now," he said. "They know that we are not weak. They know that we are not soft. They know that when the galaxy needed someone to walk through fire and save the day, it was a human who did it." Put her hand on his shoulder. It was a gentle touch, but he could feel the strength in her grip. Even weakened by months in low gravity, she was still stronger than most. "Let's go home eventually," she said. "I miss feeling heavy." Laughed. It hurt his ribs, but he laughed anyway. "Me too," he said. "Me too." Outside the window, the stars burned cold and bright, and somewhere among them, spinning in its ordinary orbit around an ordinary sun, Earth waited. The planet that had forged humanity, the world that had made them unbreakable. The galaxy was beginning to understand what that meant. And trade liaison, military engineer, and accidental hero closed his eyes and dreamed of home, of gravity, of weight, of being exactly what Earth had made him. Strong. For moments exactly like this. He took another step. The floor cracked again. They said nothing. They just watched, and they began to wonder what else they had gotten wrong about the little planet called Earth.